So good evening. This January 16th, 2024 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials are provided to Conservation Commission members prior to the meeting for review. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Proponents will be given 10 minutes to present. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. After they conclude their remarks, we will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except commission members and staff, please remember to mute your computer using the mute button or your phone using *6 to toggle mute and unmute when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you, and you should take care not to screen share your computer unless you've been allowed to do so. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any responses, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If commission members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After commission members have spoken, we will afford the public an opportunity to comment and or ask questions as follows. I will see questions and comments at the appropriate time for the Zoom raise hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants button. A list of participants will open and display on the right. At the bottom of this participant area, you will see an option to click on a raised hand button. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself using the more function next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone's keypad. We will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they appear on my screen based on when the function was selected. Each participant will be called upon to provide his or her name and address or affiliation and will be afforded 3 minutes to make comments. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. The proponent or commission members will have the opportunity to reply as needed. Your hand will be lowered when you've been given the floor for your questions. We will then continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and again afford time for responses as needed. All participants are reminded that only matters which fall into the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission may be discussed. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, and everyone is expected to conduct themselves in the same manner they would at an in-person meeting. Disruptions that impede operations of this commission will be addressed once by the chair and should be acknowledged by the disruptor. Further disruptions may result in complete removal from the meeting with no readmittance, and vulgar or obscene actions or comments will result in immediate removal from the meeting with no readmittance. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And it looks like we might have lost a couple people, but they are back in again. I thought I just saw Mick come in as well, and I don't know where he went. But Brad is back in. Yeah, I thought I saw Mick in here, but I don't know where his name went.
He got dropped out like I did, and he's trying to get back in.
Okay, that's odd. All right. Well, we have our quorum, and we can at least keep going. It should be a pretty short meeting. But we can keep going with this one, and if he comes in, I'll let him in.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sam. So just going through the agenda. So our next upcoming meeting dates are February 6th and February 20th. And if anyone has any questions or comments about that, let me know, especially if you expect to be not able to attend, so we can make sure we don't have quorum issues. And the first item on the agenda for public hearings is file number 50-1337. Which is 84 Boston Road, K&R Construction, a request to amend the order of conditions to include installation of a buried propane tank. Sam, do you have anything that you want to update us on with this filing?
Not really. It's pretty straightforward. The original order of conditions was for the construction of some commercial buildings. And we do have Matt Steinell from Millennium, who is representing K&R Construction here to present. It looks like he is pulling up the plans right now. This amendment is just to get the installation of the new propane tank, which I believe is going off of the front corner of one of the buildings. It is in the buffer zone, so it is in jurisdictional area. But it's a pretty straightforward one, pretty simple, not anything that we haven't seen before. And I didn't have any concerns about the installation or anything. Everything looks like it is all pretty good to go. We just need to get the approval underway. And I'll hand it over to Matt so he can do a quick presentation for us.
Good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
All right. I don't know that I can do a much better job than Sam did. It is a very simple project, very straightforward. It's part of a much larger development that was previously approved by the commission, and at this time is mostly complete. And one of the final steps that the owners decided to do was to bring propane into the building, which was omitted from the original plan. And so they had picked a spot out front here near the road for easy delivery and refilling of the tank. And they had started to dig the hole, and they were stopped, and they were told that it was not part of the original plan and that they needed to come back before the board and get permission to do it. So they asked us to approach the board about doing it as an RDA. And when I spoke with your conservation agent, Sam told us that the board prefers more to handle this with an open notice of intent on this as an amendment versus another filing. So we updated the plan. This is simply sheet, I think it's C2 out of the entire set. This is the only sheet that was updated. And it just shows the location of the new tank here out in the front and the straight connection right to the building adjacent to it there. This is in an area that is intended to be lawn. It's actually the reserve area. You can see the square here is the reserve area for the septic leach field. And they've been advised that obviously that would be a problem down the road if they needed to use that reserve area, but nothing in Title V requires that they do use it. They can actually remove and replace in the same spot or look at alternate areas in the future. But this system, the septic system that's designed for this, is designed for a much larger use than they're actually going to see. So we don't anticipate this field having problems for decades. It's a couple employees that are in the building, on a day-to-day basis. And this is sized for like a 3 or 4 bedroom home, essentially the size of it. So it is far larger than they need and should last a very long time. But they have acknowledged that if the reserve area ever became required, that they would have to move the tank, and they were okay with that. So they've asked us to come before the board and seek permission to install the tank at this location.
Thanks, Matt. This looks pretty straightforward. That was my question, as to whether this is in the paved area or gravel, and it sounds like it's going to be a combination of gravel and lawn, or all lawn in this particular location. My only question is whether or not this requires any kind of additional erosion controls, or the existing perimeter controls sufficient in case there's any sedimentation issues while you're under construction.
I would probably recommend that the commission, although you shouldn't have to, I would recommend the commission make it a condition of any approval that you might be considering, that they have to inspect the existing erosion control, make sure it's adequate with the weather that we've had. They may have to do some repairs. But this entire area was previously approved for some version of a development, whether it was the roadway or the walls. So this should be sufficient erosion control for that activity, and it just may need to be repaired or fixed up.
That makes sense. So I'll just go around and ask other members. Brad, do you have any questions or comments?
No comments.
Diane, any questions or comments?
No, I had just seen on the plan there where it said it could be moved if the septic is moved. That's what you were talking about, that may happen years and years from now. It's not part of the plan now.
Right. This is if we wanted it wanted it documented on the plan because I brought it to their attention and they acknowledged that they understood and that they'd be willing to do it. So we made sure to actually label it that way on the plan, so there'd be no question.
So the thought is if it's gonna be relocated at any point, you'd probably come back?
It would need to, and we're talking decades from now,
That's what I
potentially.
meant, yeah.
In which case, if they were putting in a leach field in that reserve area, they'd be coming before you to get a new notice of intent at that time to install the field, and that would include moving the tank.
Decades from now, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Thank you.
And Mary, we do have Mick in now as well. So if he has any questions, he can.
Okay, great. I'll go to Woody next and then Mick.
I have a couple quick questions. How big is the tank and how deep do you bury it?
Well, the tanks aren't buried very deep. They're pre-manufactured with an access cover to them, and the risers on those aren't all that deep, so they don't go too far below grade. The tank itself, I believe, if I didn't label it, I could find out for you, but I believe it's about 16 feet long. And then the width of the tank is ballparking probably 5 feet wide.
Okay, so when they fill it, they take a cover off the riser and then they direct fill the tank.
When I fill the tank, yeah, there'll be a cover on top of it, and when they open that up, there'll be an adapter that they can hook onto and fill directly from the truck into the tank.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering my questions.
Mick, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's strictly an LP tank, right?
Strictly a liquid propane tank, correct?
Yeah. And the capacity on it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Capacity of the tank?
I don't know the capacity. Like I said, it's about a 16-foot long tank by about 5 feet. I'd have to look at the manufacturer's spec, which they didn't provide me at this time, to tell you what the capacity was. But it's I think it's a pretty standard size for the intended use. They're not going to be operating machinery inside. It's for essentially heating.
Right. It's an FRP tank. Basically, it's a fiberglass tank.
Correct.
Steel.
It's a fiberglass tank, cylindrical.
That's my
fiberglass.
understanding. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's intended to be buried without any type of erosion. I'm sorry, degradation due to it's sitting in the ground. So it would be a fiberglass tank.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate your response. All set, Mary.
Okay, thanks. So I think that's everyone. Unless there are any other last minute questions, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing, Brad,
Aye.
Diane,
yes?
Woody,
Yes.
and Mick.
Yes.
And I also vote yes, and I would also entertain a motion to issue an amended order of conditions with a special condition that was discussed that erosion control barriers be reinforced in the area down gradient of the installation to make sure that there's adequate erosion control protection in place at the time of installation.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Brad,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
Woody,
Yes.
and Mick. You're muted, Mick. Oh, he's nodding. Okay.
Aye.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
All right. I see. And I also vote yes. So thank you very much, Matt, for your presentation. And
Thank you.
you'll be receiving an amended order of conditions. I'm assuming that you'll be coming to us at some point with a certificate of compliance once this is installed and your landscaping is complete.
That's correct. I suspect, given that 99% of the work I think is done at this point, once this is done, they'll be reaching out to us to do a site plan as built, and then we'll be able to come before you with that request.
Great. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
The next item on the agenda is DEP file number 50-1386 333rd Street for work to install a driveway to provide on-site parking with associated site work, including work within the 33rd Street right of way. And I understand we have a request to continue this to the February 6th meeting. Is that correct? Sam?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing on this item to February 6th.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Brad,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
Woody,
Yes.
and Mick.
Aye.
All right, well, what's the limit of our public hearings tonight? So we have a couple other items on the agenda. One has to do with Mass DEP proposing to modify the wetland regulations and the 401 water quality certificate regulations. And DEP is holding a series of information sessions on these items. Some of the changes will be particularly relevant to our work. There's a lot of changes to the stormwater regulations and increasing the standards, especially for water quality treatment for and what size storm event to model for these the treatment streams for stormwater management. So there's going to be probably a pretty significant change in the level of detail that we are provided in the future for stormwater management reports. And especially with the respect not only to addressing total suspended solids, but phosphorus as a nutrient pollutant. So if anyone is interested in having a red line copy of the proposed regulations, I can forward those to you. Or if you want to know when the public information sessions are, Sam or I can send you those as well. There's also included in the new wetland regulations, finally proposed language for the land subject to coastal storm flowage. So that's a 100-year floodplain, and that will that'll affect only coastal areas, but there will be additional standards for what kinds of work are allowed in land subject to coastal storm flowage. And there's also language in there to allow projects that are proposed for coastal resiliency and to address sea level rise. So it's a pretty extensive overhaul. It's round one of what is going to be a continuation of the amendments to these regulations to adapt to the changing projects types that they're seeing now, and to try to not box people in terms of being able to improve sites and make them more resilient. Where currently the regulations are preventing some good projects from going forward because the regulations don't anticipate those kind of activities. So and there's also been a guidance document, that's a draft guidance document on the salt marsh restoration work that we've been seeing that the trustees of reservations and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have been doing. DEP is going to be seeing a lot more of those projects in the future as well. And so they're trying to set some standards for what types of information are going to be required. So you'll see some consistency in those projects as well in the future. So.
And I am signed up for some of the info sessions and some of the like public comment sessions and everything. So I can at our next meeting I can come back with I believe one of them is this week. Actually, I think the info session is this week, and I think I'm signed up for a public comment session at the end of the month, I believe. Either very end of January or the very beginning of February. I can't remember what the exact date is.
Yeah, they have them starting on Thursday this week, Sam.
Yeah. So I think the Thursday one is the one that I'm signed up for, and then I'm signed up for another one in a couple weeks. So hopefully before our February 6th meeting, I can have some information to bring back to you guys, and I'll shoot out an email about that as well.
Right. So rather than going through all the changes now while they're still draft, at some point in the future when these regulations come out, we can have set aside some time in an agenda and go through them and talk about what the changes are and how that changes how we make doing our business a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other staff reports or updates, Sam?
Nope, not that I can think of.
All right, and then obviously we have the CSO release discussion, and there've been a lot of releases in the last couple of weeks. It's just very depressing. And not a lot of activity in terms of how to address these things with this continuation of these flooding events. So we'll keep listening and trying to look for opportunities to provide some comment when we can. Anything else from any other members?
No, well, I
No.
guess I'll just put it out there for a matter of discussion, but I'm starting to read through this. Red line strikeout, which is, I don't know, a couple hundred pages or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. It does seem to lean towards providing some controls for stormwater discharge. But it doesn't really, and I've only been through the first 15 or 20 pages, doesn't really provide any what looks like specific guidelines for DSO or things of that nature. And I'm attending the meeting on Thursday evening. So Sam, I don't know if you want to maybe compare notes after that, and we can do that. So I'm going to be on that call on Thursday. But I'm just very interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just very interested in how it's going to apply to DSO, and I think that from what they see, there's good things in here where they're providing actual like concrete regulation on discharge limits, and especially like the TMDLs, the total maximum daily limits. I think that's an important piece of it. One of the questions I have, I don't know, Sam or Mary, if you're more educated on it, but is it going to be like regionally or per watershed, or because the Merrimack can only handle so much, but Shawshene might be able to handle more of the Concord River, something like that.
Yeah,
I
there are
don't know if
there are TMDLs for each receiving water body. So those, I believe, have already been set. So it would just be depending on where your site is and what the TMDL is for the receiving
Okay.
water body. Yeah.
No, as laborious as it is to read, there's a lot of interesting things here.
Yeah, and they've put a lot of thought into it. And it's a culmination of multiple different efforts that
Right.
have combined into one round of changes. Whether they've bitten off more than they can chew right now remains to be seen. But like I said, this is just the first round, and there's considerably more to come. So,
and I just throw it out there for discussion, but do you see it as, or maybe Sam or others, that's kind of what I'm reading into, like I'm trying to read into it, is does it provide local conscoms with maybe a little bit more control on discharge and stormwater and things like that?
it will, in the sense that we're the first line of defense, so we'll be having to review these stormwater reports to determine whether or not they comply with the stormwater standards.
Right.
And so it's going to be more and more complex in doing that, and towns are going to have more peer reviews to be able to review these stormwater reports, because they're going to be that much more complicated.
Yeah, they're going to be data heavy, right? So it'll be a
Exactly.
lot of analytical, like discharge data, right?
Mhm.
So, no, interesting. No, it's like I said, I've been reading like a page or two to put me to sleep at night. So
Yeah.
total legalese, but I get it. I've read them
Yeah.
before.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, right, Diane. So no,
So-
but I think it's a great thing that they've really kind of taken that step forward from the state's perspective.
Yep.
To provide more control.
Mary
Oh.
or Sam, could you send me the link for Thursday's meeting?
Sure. There's one at
Yep,
1
I
o'clock,
can.
one at 6 o'clock, I think. Can you take care of that, Sam?
Yeah, I can forward out the registration links for those.
The early
I'll go
ones
back in
might
my
be
email
full.
and find them tonight and send them out.
Yeah, they may have already filled the, there are a number of, there's 3 or 4 different dates that they're doing this. So,
Yeah. So if the Thursday one is filled, there's definitely going to be others that'll be available.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. No problem.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Brad,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
Woody,
Yes,
and Mick.
Hi,
And I vote aye as well, so we made it under half an hour.
wow,
Bob will be very
Thank you,
proud.
Mary.
New chair.
All right.
way to go, Mary.
Woohoo.
Have a good night.
Good night.
thank
Thank
you,
Mary.
Thank
Thank you,
Sam.
guys.
Bye.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.